Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14. We're talking about the games that happened in SEC basketball this past Saturday. Blake, let's go in order of start time. Vanderbilt goes to Missouri and nearly pulls off an upset in what was a better game than both of us thought we would see. You had some foul trouble affecting both teams. Missouri was not its sharpest, but had just enough to pull it out in the end.
Yeah, a better game than we thought, but not surprising in the least because, as I think I pointed out in our preview video, the evidence was there clearly for Vanderbilt to keep this close because they've kept pretty much every game they played close all season long, no matter who the opponent has been. So I don't think it's that surprising when you look at it from that standpoint. Just because, like we said, they may not be a team that has the upside of some of these others, but they just continue to kind of find a way to be right there in a lot of these games. So, yeah, I mean, you got to give them credit. They played a good game. There's no doubt about it. And, um, your best players coming off the bench continues to be an interesting theme
Yeah.
in basketball.
I don't
But
get it.
I mean, look, like I said, they kept it close. They had a chance to win. And so we can argue that all we want and talk about the what ifs and if it's this scenario, that scenario. But at the same time, they lose by 3 against a Missouri team that's, been really, really good. And so, yeah, I mean, I thought, it's interesting because did Missouri play its best game? No, but I don't know that I watched that game and felt like Missouri played bad. I just think Vanderbilt played well. And I think sometimes you have to give the opponent credit. And sure, I'm sure Missouri would like a few things back that they did and maybe to do a couple things as well. Certainly the rebounding we talked about all season long was going to be something that kind of popped up at times as an issue, and the
Yeah.
defensive side of the floor. Both of those kind of popped up for Missouri, but at the end of the day, I don't think they played bad. I just think that Vanderbilt, made a lot of big shots and key moments, and yeah, I thought that was kind of the difference. And once again, I think the number you continue to circle for Missouri is just not turning the ball over. That always gives you a lot more good offensive opportunities. And I thought that, yeah, I mean, they just found a way to win the game. And I know people point out the goaltending call and all that, but I don't, yes, I think you can certainly point that out, but I think it was bigger than that. And like I said, these were two teams that were kind of just trading blows down the stretch there, and just happened that Missouri got the last one there.
Yeah, Missouri is 27 of 31 from the foul line, Vandy 8 of 12. That negates a 46-27 advantage on the boards. We've talked about how Missouri's had such trouble there. I don't think that's going away anytime soon. That Vanderbilt fan base is awfully frustrated that Liam Robbins isn't playing more, and I don't think that fan base is wrong.
Well, I mean, 16 points, 7 rebounds in 23 minutes. Yeah, I mean, what you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 guys played 13
Yep.
minutes or more. I mean, hey, like I said, it's not like it didn't work necessarily in this game. I mean, they were right there with a chance to win, but in the longer term, yeah, we said it going into the season they were going to be successful. To me, it came down to 2 guys. It's going to be Liam Robbins, Jordan Wright, and the more they play, I think the more Vanderbilt has a chance to be successful. So, yeah, so we'll see if that trend changes anytime soon.
Next one in order is the one that we all circled on our calendar. Alabama just wallops Kentucky. 78-52. The final score was indicative of how lopsided that game was. I don't know what the stronger takeaway is, whether Alabama's elite or Kentucky is in serious trouble, barring some sort of turnaround. I don't know that Kentucky's in the NCAA tournament if they select it today, but either way, those were 2 pretty big takeaways. Mark Sears was really good. Oscar Sheboy finds himself on the bench part of the game, and this one was just very interesting as we come out of it because I think there are ramifications for both programs.
Well, I wish we could just play on loop our preview because
Yeah,
one of the things I
you
said
nailed it.
was here's the deal with Kentucky. If they come out and they let Alabama dictate how this game's going to be played, they could get blown out of the building. I think that was the exact phrase I used. And I think I said more like 15 plus, but I don't know that I said, 25 plus, but not shocked by this one either because I think that right from the start, it was very clear. You could not identify what Kentucky's game plan was. Anybody watching that game who can tell me what Kentucky was actually aiming to do to counter what Alabama does, I'm open to that observation because I didn't see it. And I didn't see anything different about Kentucky that in this kind of game on the road, away from Rupp, I didn't see anything different offensively. I didn't see anything different defensively, which is significant because their defense has slipped big time. They're not as good defensively
They were
as they were.
slow getting back in transition at times, Blake. It looked to me.
Well, here's the thing. If he's had teams that haven't been just truly elite offensively at times over the years, they've still been okay defensively. This team I think is getting beyond the point of being okay defensively. Like I think they're starting to slip a bit, and they can't have the double whammy of not being a great offensive team. And let me say this too. I got nothing against the broadcast or anything ESPN wise because some people are pointing this out on Twitter. They can talk about Kentucky's offensive efficiency numbers all they want. They can say they're 21st in adjusted offensive
Hey,
efficiency, and
some of the computers I don't think have caught up to what Kentucky is. Some of them are
well,
starting to get there, but not all of them have because I'm watching what you're watching too.
just gonna say if you actually watch them play, I don't. To me, that's not an efficient offensive team, and so this is one where we laugh about the computers sometimes, but I'm not on board with the computers here because I don't think it tells the full story. What I saw was the same situation with Kentucky. And one of the things I pointed out in the preview was Kentucky to me, especially in this matchup and really against a lot of teams, they cannot afford to get down because if they do, I don't know what their game plan is to get back in the game given the way their offense is structured. And I just thought, and I think I said this on Twitter, Alabama is a team that has a very clear, dedicated approach to how they play the game, and they are aggressive. Kentucky is reactive. Kentucky just reacts to what the other team does, which you have to do. But that to me is their entire game plan. Like, I don't, if you had to tell me right now, like, what is their MO, right? Like, what is it that you're playing Kentucky, you're going to have this. I
I
have
don't
no
know.
idea what that is. I couldn't tell you I could tell you one thing. That's Oscar Shibwe. Like, and he had 4 points, right? Had just a terrible game.
And he spent some time on the bench, so like it's not. You wonder where that's going, right?
There's no clear approach that when you are game planning for Kentucky right now, outside of him. Now, look, that's an outlier of a game. I mean, let's call it what it is. I know he hasn't had some great games at times this year, maybe not up to the level last year, but that type of game is an outlier in a certain sense. But I don't know what it is about Kentucky. If you're going in and scouting them and game planning, that you're going to sit there and say, "Wow, that is what we have to be terrified about." And I'm not and like, and that's not knocking any of the players. That's just how Kentucky plays right now. And because again, like I've said, like I'm very high on Case and Wallace. I'm high on some of these other guys, but it's just how they put it all together. And I don't want to spend the whole time talking about Kentucky, but it is. I mean, if it's never been more evident than it was in that game of where they are right now as a program, and I just don't. I have no confidence that when they play good. Now, look, as we said, it's going to be the same situation after the Missouri game. What do we say? They're going to probably turn around, blow out Louisville. Well, they're going to turn around and probably blow out South Carolina on Tuesday. And some people may say, "All right, all is well," but then what happens?
No.
You go to Knoxville on Saturday, and if you thought your offense was going nowhere against Alabama, look out because when you play Tennessee, it's going to be worse if they are on the same trend that they've been on. So, yeah, a completely just demoralizing game for Kentucky. But on the flip side, Alabama is as good as advertised. They are just a tremendous team. And one of the things I also said during that game towards the end, here's what I like about Alabama. When Alabama got up 30 with, I don't know, 4 minutes left, here's what I saw from Alabama. I saw a team that wanted to come out and beat them by 50. Like they kept coming down, they kept taking threes, That's what I want to see. You say, oh, well, sportsmanship and all. No, 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 no. I want to see a team that has that instinct to come out and just say, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. We're going to keep putting our foot on the gas and we are not going to let up. That's what Alabama does when they get rolling. The exact opposite of that is Kentucky right now. And so you saw the very clear divide between those two teams. And I don't think it could have been any more evident in terms of how they played in that game.
Yeah, speaking of foot on the gas, for the second game in a row, although this one on the road and this one against a team not nearly as good as Mississippi State, Tennessee put that game away like about the time the ball was put in the air for the tip-off. I'm looking at this. Tennessee runs out, 15-3. I think, was it 16 or 18-0 against Mississippi State. This was never a game. South Carolina had come off a game at Vandy where it looked respectable and took Vandy to overtime. But, oh, my goodness, Rick Barnes' club just has no mercy on anybody's soul at this point.
Well, kind of like Kentucky's not keeping any games close, I think, with Oscar Tshiebwe being a non-factor offensively. South Carolina's not keeping any games close when Gigi Jackson doesn't score. And again, we talk about outliers, right? This is a guy that scored, I think, at least 12 points or 11 points, maybe, in every game this season, up until the Tennessee game where he did not score. And credit to Tennessee on that, right? I mean, just what do you say? I mean, yeah, the Vols, and like we just kind of said with Alabama, right? It's Tennessee did exactly what you wanted to see them do in a game where you felt like they had an advantage, schematically, however you want to draw it up. Like they had a clear advantage in certain areas, and they came out and completely just kept going and going and going right at that strength versus South Carolina's weakness. And that's exactly what you want to see from a great team. Like that to me identifies the teams that can go a long way. We always say that, right? And that's why we talk about the computers sometimes. Computers love teams that just go out and just decimate their opponents that they should decimate. And it's because, if you let teams hang around, you just, you start to wonder a little bit. You start to dive a little bit deeper into the numbers. Tennessee just destroyed a team that they should have destroyed. And it's just the way they play defensively. There's no one better in the country, in my opinion, with how they play on the defensive side of the floor. But at the same time, if they shoot 22 threes and make 10 of them regularly, offense is starting to find some things too. And so I think that's very important as well to see them make that many threes on the road and see it from a variety of different guys. Let's keep that in mind too. I think they had, what was it, 7 guys that made a three in this game. So those are the kind of things that you start to look at Tennessee and get very intrigued by because not saying they'll do that every game, but if they just take care of the ball, play defense the way they've been playing it, yeah, I mean, even Alabama's going to have a tough time beating Tennessee.
I think we may have a new sort of most underrated player in this league, and I'm going to see if you can guess who I'm talking about.
Well, considering we're talking about the Tennessee South Carolina game, I'm going to say it's probably going to be Olivier Kamwa.
Yep. And here's what's amazing, because he goes 10 of 10 from the field in 23 minutes, including a three-pointer, pulls 10 boards. I'm looking at like, I'm just curious, like what is your offensive rating in a game like that? The answer is 159 according to KenPom. And oh, by the way, that was the third best offensive rating on the team behind
Yep.
Julian Phillips and Santiago Vescovi. Like, how is that possible?
Yeah, well, it's possible against South Carolina, I think. Yeah, just I mean they are. I mean they're starting to look. Josiah Jordan James, 12 points in 18 minutes. We talked about it before. Having him back is essential for this team because that's what he gives you. He doesn't have to go out and score 25, but played 17 minutes against Mississippi State, played 18 minutes against South Carolina, made an impact in both. And I think just having that extra guy like that who's been there, experienced now, they got a lot of options to work with here. I mean, 1 through 8, 1 through 8, they are again they're Alabama 1 through 8. Like they're both these teams are just they're on another level than everybody else right now. And for Tennessee to come out and do what they did, just foot on the gas, just blew out a team that should have blown out. That's what you want to see, I think.
Okay, we called this one out ahead of time. Home court in the SEC, man. Hard to go in and Auburn and win, even if Auburn's not playing its best, and Arkansas found that out.
Well, we went to the coin flip, and turns out the coin flip does lie because we did back-to-back coin flips, and Arkansas won that. But as you and I said, I think it's probably more reliable to lean on the Auburn home winning streak. And yeah, it was certainly a that kind of game for Auburn when you looked at it from that standpoint. And um, I think you look. I mean, the deal is with Auburn, like we said, they play very confident at home. Sometimes on the road, just because I think of some of the shooting woes, they will have those games where they can make you scratch your head a little bit, aka Georgia. Um, but it's still a good team. It's still a team that's good. We just say it within the context of maybe what the expectations were last season and such. I think you have to keep that in the back of your head. But the defense, once again, shows you what they're capable of. And that's the thing, right? Is I think with Auburn, they're still just they're gonna give themselves a chance to be better offensively just because of how their defense is. And I think they'll get easier shots and they'll force some turnovers and those kind of things. And um, I mean, the deal for Arkansas now is very simple. It's just what do we say the game plan should be for any team that plays Arkansas? It's to sit back. If you don't want to play man, if you do want to play man, it doesn't matter. You can play a man or a zone, but you're just going to force them to shoot jump shots. And I think that's what you have to try to do because, look at this game. Arkansas goes 2 of 16 from three. They're now 340th nationally in 3-point shooting. That's your game plan every time you play this team with the way it's currently constructed without Nick Smith is you just force them to shoot. Now they didn't take a lot here and they got to the line a lot, which is I think if you want to talk about the key to Arkansas the rest of the way, which is partly is out of their control, right? It depends on officiating and stuff, but it's getting to the free throw line because I think that's offensively, they're just going to have to attack people because they cannot make jump shots consistently, especially from outside. So I just thought this was one of those games where that just puts you in such a tough position, knowing that you really don't have any element whatsoever of an outside threat, and it just takes a dimension away from your offense, and it just puts more pressure on you to do other things. And so yeah, I mean, credit Anthony Black. He obviously again got to the free throw line a lot, made some shots. Ricky Council, kind of it's interesting to think he had 14 points, but like he didn't have his usual maybe Ricky Council type game. Um, all that combined, just yeah, another win for Auburn at home. And I think at this point, give me whoever's on the schedule for Auburn. If they're playing at Auburn Arena, I should probably just say chalk it up to a win for the Tigers because yeah, they're unbeatable there right now.
Helps if I can hit the mute button and get that off. All right, next one, we've got Florida, Georgia. Georgia jumped out on Florida early. Terry Roberts has really been so good for Georgia, and Georgia had a shot in the final minute but just couldn't pull it out. I guess maybe one of the positives for Florida is that Colin Castleton had a better game. They're starting to get some better supporting play from some other guys, but that was a game we expected to be kind of a battle, and it really was.
I think this is another one of those games like we talked about earlier. I think I don't really come out of this game feeling bad about either team. I think, for me, I was still really impressed with Georgia in this game. Now, they missed some shots. They'd like to have back, but I still thought Georgia did a lot of good things here. I just think you give a lot of credit to Florida for down the stretch, made some big plays, got some guys. I think I think what Florida had here was that they figured out who needed to be in certain spots in the game, especially down the stretch. If they're going to pull away in this kind of game, I thought they had the kind of they figured out who their guys were in that scenario. And I mean, the thing too with Florida, right? Finally, like you get some sort of balance here. You get a bunch of guys who all kind of contribute, 5 guys in double figures between 12 and 18 points. And that's what you needed, because I mean, Castleton Castle had a nice game. He had 12 points, 8 rebounds, 7 blocks, 5 assists, just filling up the stat sheet. But if you can get other guys where he doesn't have to, hit that number, and we said he hasn't, this season's been a little bit different in terms of how they played. But if you can get these other guys stepping up, being able to contribute, I mean, look at what Jones did. Gives him 13 points. That's the most points he scored in a game this season. Kawasi Reeves, we talked about him kind of going into the season. It's been a little up and down at times, but they need him to contribute in the way he did in this game. All of that combined, Florida can now, we're talking about NCAA tournament stuff. Now, we're not going to have that conversation with Florida just yet, but like they have a good roster. It's just, I think it's been interesting to try to figure out how to put the pieces together and get everybody on the same page at the same time. Felt like he kind of had that, especially down the stretch here in the second half. And again, like I said, for Georgia, I don't. Are you going to be a little disappointed given that you had a double digit lead in the first half? Probably, but at the same time, I still think Georgia, which it may be reflected in our power rankings this week, depending on what everyone else's is. I know I had Georgia probably higher than most people. I still think this is a team that can accomplish some things, and even if it's not the NCAA tournament, I still came out of this with not a lot of you know, negatives at all when it comes to Georgia. So
No, I'm with you. I'm really impressed in the job that Mike White has done, and for a while it looked like he was going to pull off an upset in his old backyard. Okay, Ole Miss Mississippi State was pretty much the game we thought it would be. Not the prettiest offensive game. Ole Miss is really struggling to score in the half court, and Mississippi State just does what it's done, which is win another game on defense.
yeah, this was exactly the game I think you thought it would be. Just a lower scoring game. Yeah, it just was really more about defense than anything. Just two teams offensively that cannot. I mean, Mississippi State, 13 of 26 from the free throw line. As I'm watching that game, I'm thinking, what was the game? It was the Alabama game, right? Where they went 18 of 36 and from the free throw line. Like, my goodness. Yikes. Like, they are 352nd now. I had to look this up in the country in free throw shooting. They're shooting 62% from the free throw line. So, yeah, we're talking about the team that won the game. So, it was nice for them to
With
break
Polo
the
Smith, their best player, getting 4 fouls and playing just 15 minutes too, by the way.
just a wild deal offensively, I think, for both teams. Yeah. Neither team shot above 42% and well, yeah, from the floor. I mean, 2 or 3. So, Mississippi State shot 42% from 2, 33% from 3. Ole Miss shot 42% from 2, 24% from 3. And then, like we said, the free throw woes that they were certainly evident as well. So, yeah, I mean, these are two teams that are going to have to win these kind of games. I mean, that's just, I think that's their path to success this season. Unfortunately for Ole Miss, they put themselves in an 0-3 spot here, and now got to play Auburn coming up next. So, yeah, I think it was you really needed that win if you were Ole Miss, but at the same time, Mississippi State, it kind of felt like a must win too, just given kind of the trajectory of where they are and the fact that Mississippi State's schedule, talk about a brutal stretch coming up at Georgia, at Auburn, home against Tennessee, home against Florida, at Alabama in their next 5 games. So that's a tough one. And, for a team that really needed to start kind of building the resume, this is that stretch to do it because otherwise, I think that the schedule and just the offensive limitations may sort of get the best of them as we head here, later into January and then into February.
All right, last game was another toss-up. I said I will take the home team in this one. That ended up being the right call. Texas A&M gets 1 bench point, but beats LSU 69-56.
I like the Eric Musselman special, it seems like. Yeah, I mean, very. I took LSU in this one. I said maybe they, coming off that game against Kentucky, maybe has a little bit of a confidence boost, although you never maybe really account for sort of the hangover of coming up close and losing that game. And yeah, they just didn't play well here. They just could never find a rhythm offensively at all. And I think that was the big problem here for them. And, kind of the usual guys. did their thing, but it just was not. Yeah, that they just could not find a rhythm offensively. Which I mean, as an LSU team, I don't think that's their strength. It's all season we've kind of talked about that. It's not really a team that's going to wow you offensively, but maybe they do enough things defensively to make some things easier. But on the flip side, A&M, I mean, yeah, like you said, give their starters credit. You had guys that all stepped up and played well, and yeah, this was kind of one of those games you just watched, and quite honestly, I never got the sense the LSU can make a run, and and it's not A&M played well. Don't get me wrong, but like I felt like it was kind of never a situation where you just this is kind of another game where I don't you're disappointed in LSU, but maybe you also come out of this game where you're just not really changing your opinion. I don't know if my opinion on A&M changes all that much, which may be reflected by the power rankings this week, but it's a nice win, and here they are at 2-0. And what did we say coming in? We said, don't look now, but A&M could start off 4-0, 5-0 maybe in the SEC, because what did they start last year? It was 4-0, right? They could start 5-0 if they can win this game against Missouri, because after that, at South Carolina, home against Florida. So don't look now. But the Aggies, if they can pull off the upset against Missouri on Wednesday, they're going to be favored to be 5-0 in the SEC, heading into a showdown with Kentucky and Rupp on January 21st, perhaps. So
Betting $11 to win 10 stinks. With BROTHROW, you bet 10 to win 10. It lets you bet in all 50 states. Because BROTHROW isn't the house, bettors have a fair chance at winning. It's the only sports betting platform that doesn't take a cut of every bet. You don't need to make deposits, no minimum bets, no need to connect your bank account. Bettors pay each other directly. There's a hassle-free sign-up process that lets you get in the action in seconds. Go to brothrow.com/SE14 once you're there. Ask to join our private group. Southeastern 14 will let you in, and we'll have some fun there. Okay, Blake, any parting thoughts? We'll be doing power rankings shortly, followed by predictions. But, yeah, just another afternoon in the SEC, it seemed to me.
Yep, another wild Saturday. Power rankings this week are going to be a complete mess because, as you'll see
Yes.
when we talk about it, beyond, in all honesty, beyond top four, I don't have a clue where to put some of these teams. So yeah, those will be a mess. But be sure to hit that subscribe button. A lot more basketball stuff on the way, and a lot more football stuff as well. So check all that out.
Thanks for watching Southeastern 14. We'll see you again soon.